This video is made possible by donations to the United States Lighthouse Society from people like you. Go ahead and get started. So again, welcome everybody. I just want to remind you, as always, to keep your mics muted. So you should have your mic muted. The mic icon is in the lower left, should have a red line through it. If not, click on it. So it does have a red line through it. Looks like everybody's muted except Margie, who's going to present in a moment. And don't share your screens, whatever you do. Nobody's going to be doing that except Margie, our presenter today. So you all know the drill. A lot of you have been to these events before, these tour previews. We've done both tour previews and tour retrospectives. And of course, today we're doing the preview of the Nova Scotia tour that's coming up, Nova Scotia and Prince Edward Island. Margie's going to fill you in on a lot of the details of that tour. I see a lot of familiar faces here, some of whom were just on the Long Island tour a couple of weeks ago that I just did. I see Bill and Bob, and I'm sure there's others here as well. So welcome to you. There's also people here who were on the Ireland tour I did last July. That was amazing. Of course, Marjie and Joye Rowland led that. So welcome back to our regular, our usual suspects here, and welcome to everybody else who's maybe attending your first event with us. Gonna admit a couple of people from the waiting room here. So I'm just gonna do a quick introduction here before I turn things over to Margie for her tour preview. And I just wanna start by saying a little bit about Nova Scotia and Prince Edward Island. I'm not going to get into great depth here, but of course, I have Peggy's Cove as a background. I see Bill Bates also has Peggy's Cove. Good background there, Bill. Yeah, good choice. So Nova Scotia, of course, I probably don't need to tell everybody, but it is a province of the extreme southeastern corner of Canada. And the southern part of the province is on a peninsula with the Atlantic to the east and the Bay of Fundy to the west. Cape Breton Island is to the northeast. For its size, Nova Scotia has a long coastline and a very large number of lighthouses, 150 to 170, depending on which list you believe and how you count them, what your definition of a lighthouse is. And speaking of Bill, I know there's some disagreement on what exactly constitutes an exact lighthouse, but there'll never be complete agreement on that. So again, up as many as 170 lighthouses in Nova Scotia. That's more than any U.S. state. The oldest standing lighthouse in North America is in Nova Scotia, Sambro Island, at the entrance to Halifax Harbor, built in 1758. In the 17th century, Nova Scotia was called Acadia. It was part of New France, the French Empire in North America. Britain conquered Acadia in 1710 during Queen Anne's War, established a Nova Scotia colony. Cape Breton Island continued as a French colony until it was conquered by Britain in 1758. So I have a personal connection to Nova Scotia. An ancestor of mine founded Pubnico, Nova Scotia, on the south coast near Yarmouth in 1651. There are d'Entremonts in my family tree who are keepers of the Abbott's Harbor Lighthouse in Pubnico. I visited Nova Scotia twice, and I was treated kind of like a long-lost cousin when I was there. The people are so nice. Prince Edward Island was originally part of the Nova Scotia colony. It became a separate colony in 1769. The colony's name was changed from St. John's Island to Prince Edward Island in 1798, and it is the smallest of the 10 Canadian provinces. The Nova Scotia Lighthouse Preservation Society was founded in 1994 by lighthouse enthusiasts Rip Irwin, Patsy McDonald, and Chris Mills. I knew Rip. He wrote a great book on Nova Scotia lighthouses, and Chris Mills has also written some great books. He's a former lighthouse keeper. They set up the nonprofit society to benefit all the existing lighthouses in Nova Scotia. There's also the Prince Edward Island Lighthouse Society, which works for the preservation of that island's light stations. So with that, I'm going to introduce Marjie Rowland. A lot of you know Marjie. Some of you have done tours with her. Marjie and her husband, Joye Rowland, and also their granddaughter, Cassandra, has been involved with tours as well. Marjie and Joye are volunteers for the Society, live in Washington State, and just are tremendously important volunteers for the Society. And they will be leading this Nova Scotia and Prince Edward Island tour. So at this point, I think we're ready for me to turn things over to Marjie. So you can go ahead and take it away, Marjie.
Welcome, everybody. I'm going to try to share my screen. August 12th, August 30th. It hasn't changed. We're going to fly into Halifax, but just like most of the hotels these days, they do not provide shuttle service, so you'll have to grab a taxi. And the price today is 68 Canadian dollars or 50 US dollars. So we will take a taxi to Barrington Hotel, which is the little red dot in the map there. And it is close to many of the important tourist sites that we will want to see.
Marjie, excuse me for a second. I just want to say something really quickly. First of all, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Jeremy D'Entremont, the historian for the U.S. Lighthouse Society. I want to mention that after Marjie finishes, we'll take questions. So you can ask questions in the chat, which we'll get to at the end, or I'll explain how to digitally raise your hand if you want to speak out loud when we get to that point. So I just wanted to say that before I forgot. Also, this presentation is being recorded. It will be online within a few days. So sorry to interrupt you, Marjie. You can go ahead.
That's okay. That's good information to know about the presentation. This is the Maritime Museum, which is like 4 blocks from the hotel. And this is the Citadel, which is up the hill from the hotel. Very important site to see. Recommend you seeing it. So that's day 2. You're going to have your free day to do just exactly that. Also to help decompress from air travel, which is pretty traumatic these days. And the next day, we're going to take a ferry out to George's Island, which I am told includes lunch. And you can spend a lot of time out there, including seeing the lighthouse. And there's lots of trails, paths, tunnels. And I'm believing, according to the tour coordinator, that you will have what they call a flex ticket, which means that you will be able to come back anytime you want. We don't have to come back as a group. So that evening you'll have dinner on your own. And the next day is when we actually get on the bus. And our travel route is from Halifax all the way up to Alberton, and seeing lots of lighthouses on the way. The first thing, though, we're going to do is stop in Truro at a Walmart Supercenter. Well, you're going to go ahead and pick up your lunch on your own, and it'll be, they have a deli, it's a grocery store, as well as there's a McDonald's in there, whatever you prefer to eat. So you're going to pick it up on your own. And then we're going to head to our first 2 lighthouses, Indian Point, excuse me. And then after we see that one, we go 6 minutes away and we see the names, Cape Tormentine Outer Range Wharf Light, which I believe is still looking in pretty sad condition by the sounds of things. All right. Then we go to Cape Jormain Nature Center and the lighthouse. The lighthouse itself is 1.1 miles from the center. It is a very nice walk, pretty flat, but it's going to be a walk. So we're going to be there for a while. But this is where you will have your lunch. They have some picnic tables. Then we get on the bus and go over the bridge to Prince Edward Island, where we will stop right after on the other side to see Port Borden rear range light and the pier light. The front light is within view, especially from the pier light. You'll be able to see the front range light. We won't go there, but you can see it. Then our next stop will be Sea Cow Head Lighthouse. And it's a pretty dirt road, so I haven't had opportunity to talk to the bus driver to see how far we can get down this road. But we're going to make an effort to get there. And then we have Indian Head Lighthouse, which is actually out on a rock breakwater. So you will only be able to get a distant view of that. And if for some reason we can't, there is a way you can see it the next day, which I'll show you. Then we will go to Mill River Resort. We're going to spend 3 nights here. You can see it's a very nice resort. And we'll have dinner at the hotel. This is our next day. We're going to leave Mill River Resort. We're going to go down to Summerside, crossed up to West Point Lighthouse, up to Howard's Cove, and back down to Mill River Resort. This is the first light we're going to see, a range light, Summerside rear range light, right off the street. So we'll be able to have the bus park and take a picture. And then there's the outer range lights. This one is the front light. And you can see in the distance, there's Indian Head Light. So if we can't get it the previous day, we'll get a long shot of it the next day. And then this is the rear, and it's right off the road. So we will definitely be able to see both of those, get pictures. Then we go to the bottle houses. These houses were built by the last keeper at Cape Egmont Lighthouse. Obviously, he couldn't do without his lighthouse. As you can see, he built a little faux lighthouse in the garden there. So we are going to stop there and have some time there to see how pretty those are. Then we go to Cape Egmont Lighthouse, which is not too far away. And we will be able to get pretty close, but not into Cape Egmont Lighthouse. And we stop somewhere for lunch and go to West Point Lighthouse, which is an inn as well as a lighthouse and a museum and a gift shop. So we'll be spending some time there. You can also get down to the beach. It's a very nice lighthouse. Then on the way back, we'll stop at Howard's Cove Lighthouse, a little short lighthouse that the parking lot is down below. You have to walk up a little hill to get to it. So that's day 5. We get back to the hotel and dinner at the hotel again. Next day, day 6. Day 6, oops, go back. And it won't go back. We're going to head north, and this is the first light that we're going to see. If I can get out of this. Yeah.
Margie, just click on the picture itself. Go ahead and click there. That should get rid of the menu. There you go.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is North Point Light Station. And you can see that there's also a wind energy interpretive center there, which has a gift shop and lots of items to see. So we're going to spend some time there, give us all an opportunity. You can see by the gate around the lighthouse. We will not be able to enter it, but we can get pictures of it. Some of these lighthouses are controlled by the Coast Guard, and those are the ones that we will not be able to enter, or the ones that are privately owned. Then we'll head to Big Tignish Lighthouse. Another one we will not be able to get into, but it is located in a park. Then we're going to go to lunch. And from the parking lot of this restaurant, you will be able to get a picture of Cascampeck Lighthouse. As you can see, it's on an island, and this is probably the best picture you're going to get of that lighthouse, as long as the weather cooperates. Then we stop at the Northport Range Rear Lighthouse, which is right next to the community center. Very accessible, right off the road. And from there, we go back to the hotel. We're going to arrive pretty early, so we're going to let you just wander around the resort, have dinner on your own at the resort, so you can relax before our next day, which is the day that we leave the resort. So we start up at Mill River Resort, and we end up in Charlottetown, seeing lighthouses on the way. The first one is, it's supposed to be Fish Island Lighthouse. I guess I was thinking of fishing when I put this on the slide, but it is Fish Island Lighthouse. Then we go to try and see the Malpeque Outer Range Rear Lighthouse. It is in a field just off of a road, not a main road. And both the main road and the road on the side are private. The main road is not, but the road on the side is privately owned. So we're just going to be able to get a far shot of this cute little outer range rear lighthouse on private land. I have been sent a email to the Malpeque community to see if they can help us out getting a better picture, getting closer. Then we're going to go to Anne of Green Gables. This museum is obviously related to the story, Anne of Green Gables, and we will spend some time there. They have a nice tour and a gift shop. And then we will go to Cape Tyrone Lighthouse, just down the road. And you can see by the picture that it looks like we get pretty close as long as the bus can go down the road. Then New London Lighthouse. This one we will not be able to get real close, but the main road is 500 feet from this lighthouse. So we would have to walk 500 feet. No access to these lighthouses, these last two lighthouses, other than pictures. Then we'll go to lunch at a very unique place. When they did the tour in 2007, we did have lunch there. Jerry and I were on that tour. And this is a place that has wonderful food as well as lots of preserves. So you're going to want to try, they have a tasting place, and you're going to want to try their preserves. And if you like them, you can have them sent home. And I did that. Plus I ordered more in years after that. Then we go to a nice little fishing community, North Rustico, and it has a little lighthouse there. But also not shown in this picture, I should have really put in a different picture, is a lighthouse cafe shaped like a lighthouse and a seagull museum and gift shop. So we're we're going to spend time here so you have an opportunity to enjoy those as well. Then we go to our hotel, our place to stay in Charlottetown. And you'll notice that it is pretty unique. It's not one big building. It's like 6, 7 buildings in one block area of older homes that have been transformed into rooms and suites. So we're going to be staying in number 1 and possibly number 6. I wasn't sure how many of these will occupy. And then number 3 is where we have our breakfast. Going to be different, a little different experience. We're going to spend 3 nights here. And this night we will have dinner at a local restaurant. There's quite a few around this hotel, place to stay, this inn. Next day we will leave Charlottetown and we'll head straight over to Victoria's Seaport Lighthouse Museum and work our way back, all the way back to Charlottetown. So the first place we'll stop is Victoria's Seaport Museum and Laird's Lighthouse Range Lighthouse. And it's a museum inside the lighthouse and you can climb it. And they're telling me that you can be able to see Wright's Harbor range lights, especially the front one. And I'm also hoping that you'll be able to see the rear range lighthouse, the Laird's rear range lighthouse, as this is what I could get off of Google. Here's the lighthouse or the range light. So this is private property. So we can get off the bus, but we can't go on the property. Don't know if you walk around, if you can get a better view of it. Well, I'm hoping that we can get a good view from the top of the front range light. Then we will go to Blockhouse Point Lighthouse. Pretty lighthouse. We cannot enter this one, but we can get some pretty good shots of it. And about like 2 minutes away is Fort Amherst, Fort Joye National Historic Site. We're going to park right here, and then we're going to have we'll have our lunch with us, and we're going to eat our lunch here, picnic lunch here, lots of picnic tables. There's a total of 5 kilometers of trail, but you don't need to walk all the trails to see the Warren Cove range lights. This actually, number 5, is called the Range Trail because here's the rear range and there's the front range. So you'll be able to see the range lights during this walk. So we'll stay there long enough to do some walking and to have our lunch. You can also see a view of Charlottetown from that park as well, across the water. On the way back, we'll see the Brighton Beach range lights. This one, the bus will have to park on the road and we walk down a small road to see that one. And this one is right off the road, So strange shape, but then we go back to the hotel and we have a dinner at a local restaurant again. Next day, we leave our hotel inn and we go straight north and make a route around and come back. Seeing lots of lighthouses, the first one being Cove Head. Cove Head Lighthouse, as you can see from the main road, is right there, so it's a very short walk. And there's a nice beach as well. And St. Peter's Harbor Lighthouse. This is one where it's a dirt road, and they say that right here at the water part, it can get like ruts. So I'm not sure how far the bus is going to be able to take it. but it is 0.6 miles to the lighthouse if we have to walk it. Okay, Jerry says that equates to half a mile. All right, so next one is Shipwreck Point. This one will be a challenge as well, but it's 600 feet if the bus has to park here, 600 feet to the lighthouse. It's a private road, so I have contacted the people to see if we can have access to at least walk it. Then we go to East Point Lighthouse. This one we can get into. This one has a craft shop and it has a cafe. So it's going to be a very exciting visit, allowing enough time for everybody to do all of that, climb and shop. And then we'll go to lunch. And then the last lighthouse of the day is Surrey East Lighthouse, another place that we get to climb. It has an interpretive center as well and a gift shop. So another time, this is another place where we have enough time to do all of that. And then we're going to go back to the inn, the hotel, and we're going to let you have dinner on your own so you can explore some of the Charlottetown area. If you want to walk to the waterfront, it's about a mile. But there's lots of places to eat. Little yellowish orange circles are places to eat. I don't think you'll have a problem finding a place. It is our last night in Charlottetown. So the next day when we leave, we're going to head this way, over across, all the way over here, and around, end up at Wood Island to take the ferry across to Nova Scotia. So this is our last day on Prince Edward Island. We'll start with the hazard range lights. This one we should be able to see right on the water. This one's on private property. I don't think we'll be able to see it, but we're going to give it a try. Next one is Point Prim Lighthouse, and we can get into this one. So it's going to be a very nice visit, giving you lots of time to do that. And then over to Panmure Lighthouse, another one we can get into, and it does have a gift shop. Next one is Cape Bear Lighthouse and Marconi Station. Now, they advertise that they the first message from the Titanic SOS, was first heard at this station. Now, I was at the Cape Race Lighthouse in Newfoundland, and they said the same thing. So I do not hold this much truth in this, but we're definitely going to ask them in more detail when we get there why they advertise that. Then we'll head down to Wood Island Lighthouse, another place that has entry. We can get into this as well as a gift shop. Very nice little lighthouse, just up the hill from the ferry landing where we're going to catch the ferry. So we'll have about an hour here before we have to get down to the ferry. It's a 3:15 ferry. We got to be there at 2:45. It's a 45-minute crossing. And we're going to land at Caribou, Nova Scotia. And on the way, you'll be able to see from the ferry, Caribou Lighthouse. Then we head to our inn in Pictou, Braeside Inn. And we're going to have dinner at the Marina Bar and Grill. Now, I have also added in here time before we have dinner to try and view the Pictou range lights. But it says that you have to, in the site, it says you have to go to a park and then go on the beach and walk up the beach before you can see the range light. So I'm doing more research on that to see if that can be done. If nothing else, those people that like to walk when we will have plenty of time by the time we get to the hotel before we leave for dinner at 7. We got like to walk. Next day, we're going to leave Pictou and we're going to head up to Baddeck, B-A-D-D-E-C-K, Baddeck. Seeing lots of lighthouses on the way, but we will make a stop right there in Pictou at this Northumberland Fisheries Museum. They have a lighthouse interpretive center, research and interpretive center, shaped like a lighthouse. And we'll spend some time there. And then we'll head to Aristag Lighthouse, and they have a lobster interpretive center there. See, it's not too far from the lighthouse. This is actually a replica of the lighthouse, the first one. I can't remember if it was burned down, but they rebuilt it. I wrote that down in a note. Then we go to Cape George Lighthouse, and there's a lobster interpretive center there that has a third order lens in there. So we'll be stopping. It's not too far from the lighthouse. We'll be stopping there to find out about lobsters. Then we'll stop at lunch at a local restaurant. Not sure if this is the place, but we'll definitely stop to eat. And then we will go to the Haber-Boschert range lights. This one is right, this is the rear, it is right off the road. So no doubt we'll be able to see that and get a picture of it. This is the front, and they have changed it, as you can see, from just slatted vinyl strips. In order to get to this, you have to cross some railroad tracks. I don't think we're going to get there. But I'll look into it more. Then we're going to go to Inverary Resort and have dinner at the hotel there. So that's day 11. Day 12, we're going to leave that resort, head on up to lots of different areas, and end up in Sydney. But before we leave the area of Baddeck, we're going to get a harbor cruise, which is going to go around Kidston Island, so we can see Kidston East and West lighthouses, as well as what the harbor has to offer. After that cruise, we're going to go to the Alexander Graham Bell Museum, which is just up the road, not very far. Then we'll stop and have lunch. This is the one that we have booked so far. Then we're going to see the Great Bras-d'Or Front Range Light, this one, which there is a road over here that you can't see, but it crops out away from the shore. So I'm hoping that you'll also be able to see the rear range light from there, because the rear range light is on private property and very hard to get to. So we'll have to wait and see if we can see it when we get there. Then we'll head to Black Rock Point. And then we go to the Holiday Inn waterfront in Sydney. And we're going to spend 2 nights here. And we'll have dinner at the hotel. Next day, we leave Sydney. We go up, and then down, and over, and back up. Low Point Lighthouse is the next one. And it appears that we can get pretty close to it. No entry though. Louisburg Lighthouse gets very close, but no entry. Then we go to the Louisburg Fortress, which, by the way, you can, if it's a clear day, you can see the Louisburg Lighthouse from the fortress. So we might be able to get a distance shot as well. And then we go to lunch somewhere, and then we go to Gables Lighthouse. Can't enter this one. Back to the hotel. And we're going to arrive about 4 p.m. So we're going to give you some free time before we will have dinner at the hotel again. And the next day, we leave Sydney and we travel all the way down to Truro, seeing lots of lighthouses on the way. First one is Jerome Point Lighthouse that is in a park. And then we go to Port Hastings and Dawlish Range Light, I think I pronounced that right, is there. And then we will stop at Port Hastings at the Big G's Pizza for lunch. Then we will go to Port Bickerton Lighthouse, and they have an interpretive center in the lighthouse. So we'll be spending some time there. And then on to Truro, to this Inn on Prince in Truro is the title, but it looks like a Holiday Inn to me. And we'll have dinner at the hotel there. Then the next day we go from Truro along the top portion of the peninsula and end up across on the other side at our hotel for the evening. The very first place we go is the Burntcoat Head Lighthouse, which is on an inlet off of Bay of Fundy. And this is the place where they have the highest recorded tide of 54 feet. And it is an extreme tide. We'll be getting there just about at high tide. We'll be staying for an hour. So you'll be able to see in an hour how fast the water recedes in that little bay. They do have some walking trails around the lighthouse as well, so you can get good views of that. Then on to Walton Lighthouse, just down the road. And then we're going to pick up lunch and stop at Horton Bluff Lighthouse. And then we head to Hampton Lighthouse and Historical Society, so we can enter this one. And we'll make a short stop at the Annapolis Royal Lighthouse, cute little lighthouse in a park. And then we head across the peninsula to the White Point Beach Resort. Beautiful resort. And we will have dinner at the hotel. Next morning, we'll leave the resort and we go up and around and back to the resort. We make a circle this day. So our first stop will be Gilbert's Cove Lighthouse. And we can get into this one. It also has a tea room and a gift shop. Then we go to Cape St. Mary Lighthouse Park. No entry into the lighthouse, but good pictures. Then we go to Cape Horseshoe Lighthouse Climb. So you definitely get to climb this. And you will also, if the weather cooperates, be able to view Bunker Island Lighthouse. So, and we're going to pick up lunch so that we can eat here. Then we head to Seal Island Light Museum. This is actually a replica of the lighthouse that was on Seal Island. And it has been turned into a museum. So we will definitely get into it. Then back to the hotel, and again, dinner at the hotel. Time to explore a little bit on the beach before we head out the next day, where we end up in Halifax. And our first stop is Fort Point Lighthouse and Park. which this is a very fun lighthouse. You can see there's bathrooms on the lighthouse itself. I think that's the second lighthouse that I've seen that has bathrooms. But it's a wonderful park. So we're going to allow some time here to explore this park. And the last time we were there, before we got there, they had us stop and some soldiers dressed in old military uniforms arrested all of us, took us into custody before we got to the park. I'm hoping they do the same thing. I'm trying to arrange that. So be prepared to be arrested. And then Western Head Lighthouse. Medway Lighthouse. And we can get to this one and we can enter this one. Then we go to the Fisheries Museum of the Atlantic. This red building here in the front is the whole museum, and it's 3 stories tall. It is huge. You could spend half a day there if you wanted to. But we're going to spend a couple hours here because you're going to have lunch on your own here. There's lots of little places along here that offer food. This is Lunenburg that we're in. It's an international city, and you'll see the houses rather, they're all painted a different color like you would see in other international cities. A very wonderful little city to be in. And on the way to our hotel, we'll stop by Mahone Bay and take a picture of Westhaven Island Lighthouse. Then back to Halifax. This time we'll be at the Hollis Hotel, the DoubleTree, and we'll have dinner at the hotel. The next day is all devoted to Peggy's Cove. We leave the hotel, go down to Peggy's Cove and spend a couple hours there, and then back to the hotel. And then the rest of the day is on your own until the farewell dinner. We'll have farewell dinner that night. And of course, you've all seen pictures of Peggy's Cove. So we should be back to the hotel by noon. So you can have lunch on your own, and then we'll have the farewell dinner at the hotel. Now, the next day is flights home. And as I stated before, you'll have to arrange your own transportation to the airport. They do not provide shuttles anymore. So that's pretty much it. There are quite a few things that we're still working with the tour company on getting entry into lighthouses, finalizing restaurants. The hotels and inns are all finalized, but that's what we're still working on. Okay. Jerry's clapping for me. He says I did a good job. Yeah, right.
Okay, Margie, you can click on stop sharing if you're ready to.
I am ready to stop sharing.
Okay,
yes.
Great. Thank you, Margie. As we were speaking, we had a couple of questions in the chat, and I tried to answer them in the chat already. But one question was, why are the Canadian lighthouses all 4-sided towers? They're not all, certainly, and in the maritime provinces on the Atlantic, including Nova Scotia and Prince Edward Island, a lot of them are what I think people sometimes refer to as salt and pepper shakers. They're those square white pyramidal towers with the red lanterns. And I'm not an expert on this, but I believe it's just because they were cheap and easy to build, these wooden lighthouses that are also similar, rather than put a tremendous amount of time and money into building them. They just built a lot of those simple square salt and pepper shakers. But as you saw in Margie's presentation, there's a lot of other kinds too, and there's a lot of variations within that style. But if you go to the other Canadian provinces, some of them are quite different too. So anyway, I think that more or less answers that question. But the other question was, is there a cost estimate for this tour? And I posted a link to the page. If you all look in the chat, I posted a link to the page on the USLHS website in the tour section, that down the bottom of the page actually lists the price for per person and per person for a double or single, and it breaks it down to 18 nights of lodging, 19 breakfasts, et cetera, and lists a bunch of the museums that you see in addition to the lighthouses. So the cost is $8,100 per person for double, $10,530 for single, unless that's changed, Margie. But that's what's.
Nope, that's still the right price for this.
Here's a really good question somebody just posted in the chat. Did the recent wildfires in Nova Scotia affect the tour?
No, not at this time. But we're keeping an eye on it. Absolutely.
Yeah, they're pretty close to Halifax, right? The fires, I believe.
Yes.
Lost 250 private homes.
That lost 250 private homes. Yeah.
We're getting haze here in New England from those fires. Yeah, not serious or anything, but I know they're terrible fires up there. So if anybody, well, did you want to say anything more, Margie, before I was going to ask if people have more questions?
No, let's go for questions. Okay.
So anybody, if you have questions, you can post them in the chat now, or if you want to down on your menu down the bottom on Zoom, if you click on reactions and then click on where it says raise hand, we'll see that you've digitally raised your hand, and I can call on you and you can unmute your mic and ask verbally your question. But you can do it either way. So let's see if anybody has any more questions. Here's a couple of things posted in the chat. We are getting haze from the fires here in Iowa also. Yeah, I guess it's really affecting a lot of this country. I noticed one of the lighthouses was painted orange. Any significance? Just a day mark, I think, to make it stand out from other lighthouses and probably from the background. So other than that, I don't think there's any particular reason. Most of these, again, most of the Atlantic Canadian lighthouses are white with red lanterns, sometimes red trim. Some Head Harbor on Campobello Island has a red cross on it. Sometimes there are more distinctive day marks to make it really easy for mariners to tell them apart from other ones. I was going to mention also that you talked about I think the English-speaking people there pronounce it Louisburg, and the original Louisburg lighthouse was one of the first lighthouses on the continent, built in 1734. The one that's there now is not the original, but that's one of the really important lighthouse sites on North America. I was also going to mention you're going to stay at the White Point Resort on the South Coast, and I was there in the year 2000 for a lighthouse conference for about a week. It was amazing. I love that place. It's beautiful around there. I visited some of the local lighthouses during the week or so that I was there. And I always remember one of the meals they served us at the White Point Resort was cedar plank salmon cooked outside on cedar planks, which was really, really good. I don't know if you're getting that. I probably shouldn't mention it because I don't know if that's included on the tour, but I always remember that meal really well. What's that, Jerry? You're getting that?
Thanks a lot, Jeremy.
Oh, I thought, well, you ask for it. See if you can get it, because I thought it was great. Sorry if it's not, forget I said it if it's not there. Somebody says, Margie, what is the other lighthouse to have bathrooms?
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that we were on our South Carolina and Georgia tour, but right at the moment, I can't remember the name of it. I'll look it up, send it to you, Tony and Alma.
Peggy's Cove used to have a post office in it, but no longer. It's been closed for a number of years now, but Peggy's Cove Lighthouse was the only one I know of that where the first floor was a post office. We had somebody with a question. I was about to call on him, but he somehow got back in the waiting room. So let's see if he comes back here. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, there's Irva, I think you had a question. You just went back to the waiting room, but if you want to unmute your mic and go ahead and ask your question. Do you hear me? Might not hear me yet. I just came back in the room. Irva, I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce your name, but can you hear me? Whoop, I was muted again. Irva, if you can hear me, I know you had a question before. You can go ahead and there you go. Okay.
Okay, we're driving up and we need a place to park the car in Halifax for the time that we'll be away.
Yes, yeah,
So
we're
that's
aware of that, Urban. We're working on it.
excellent. And the other thing is, where can we get a copy of this video?
Yep.
Your recording?
It'll be posted on YouTube within a couple of days, possibly as soon as tomorrow on the USLHS YouTube channel. And it'll be posted on the USLHS website, uslhs.org, soon after that, within the next 2 or 3 days.
Terrific.
Yeah, it should be easy to find. If you get on YouTube, just do a search for USLHS and you'll find the YouTube channel, which has hundreds of videos on it. But this will be the next one posted there. So
I see a comment that said, so glad you're going to stop at the Anna Green Gables. You know, we do try to do other sites in the area that we think are just places that you can't miss. For instance, the bottle houses. It's not a lighthouse, but it is just a very unique place. And so is the Anna Green Gables. So.
And the fort.
And the forts, yeah. So yeah, we always try to keep those in the itinerary.
yeah. I saw. Yeah, I mentioned Peggy's Cove. I think that's the last lighthouse you're visiting. I just want to mention, I think that's the most photographed lighthouse in Canada. I would say it has to be. It's not like it's not the tallest or it's not that extraordinary as far as the tower itself, but it's something about the setting that just it always makes me. It doesn't look anything like it, but it makes me think of the Noble Lighthouse in Maine. That's just kind of iconic and like the perfect lighthouse scene, like the perfect postcard. There's just something about it. So, and the little village there, as you get to the lighthouse, is really, really pretty. There's not a lot there, but it's not overly developed or anything. It's just perfect, I think, the way it is. So just wanted to throw that in. I'm not seeing any more questions or comments here. I want to mention.
I do see that there's some people on here that are going to be on the tour, which I'm very pleased with. And Jerry wanted to remind everybody that when you go on our international tours, he makes stamps afterwards for the past people.
Good point. So that's a really good point, because of course the USLHS passport program is pretty much American lighthouses, although more in other places seem to be getting into it, including some Canadian lights. So I imagine some of these places have their own passport stamps, right? But probably
I'm
not.
trying to find that out. So I'm
Mhm.
glad you gave me the National Lighthouse.
The Preservation Society.
Preservation Society, yeah.
Definitely check with them. They'll probably be able to give you that info. Somebody says some good ghost stories, I think, talking about Peggy's Cove too. A lot of these places have good ghost stories. So yeah. Margie, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add. I was just going to mention a couple of upcoming Zoom events we're planning. But there is just, of course, we want to emphasize the point that there is still room on this tour, of course, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
There is. We'd like to get 2 to 4 more people.
Yeah. Is there a deadline for signing up, or any particular deadline, or?
July, about mid-July, July 15th. We have to give the final numbers to the tour company.
And people can call the USLHS office, or that's probably the best way to get in touch, right? If they're interested.
Yeah, well, that's one way, or they could call Jerry or myself, or reach us on email at jerry@uslhs.org or Marjie@uslhs.org.
That's easy enough. It's MARJIE
Yep.
at uslhs.org. Yeah. Excellent. So I was going to mention that on June 24th, Saturday, June 24th, we're planning a Zoom event. It looks like that'll be the next one we're having. That's with Dave Zapatka, the photographer who has been doing a project for quite a while now, where he's trying to photograph pretty close to every lighthouse in the country, or as close as he can get, photographing them at night with the stars and the Milky Way and so forth. And he does some amazing work. And there's a book of his work, Stars and Lights, that has been published by the U.S. Lighthouse Society. So we're going to do an event with him where he's going to show some of his pictures and talk about how he got them and that kind of thing. We also have one scheduled. I should have written all this down. I'm looking at my schedule book here. We have one in August that's going to be about, actually, we have one on July 29th that's going to be featuring Montauk Lighthouse. I'm actually wearing a Montauk hat because I was there on the tour a couple of weeks ago. But that's going to be with the director of the Montauk Lighthouse, Mia Sertich. They're just celebrating a lot of restoration work that's just been done, and they're having a big celebration. We're going to be talking about that. That's on July 29th. And there's one coming up in August, August 19th. That's going to be a look at antique lighthouse postcards of the woman who's just putting out a new book about them. So I just want to let you know about those coming up. Watch for more info on those. We got a post in the chat. Well done, Margie. So if any, I'm going to give people a few more seconds here. If anybody has any last questions, either raise your hand digitally or ask in the chat. I'm not seeing anybody. Speak now or forever hold your peace. So.
Good. It's down to within an hour. I love to only have hour time frames. That's about all the attention that we handle.
Yeah, it's a perfect length, I think. Some of us tend to go on too long, but that was absolutely perfect. I'm putting myself number one on that list. But anyway, thank you, Margie, and
right.
thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for attending today, and see you in upcoming events. See you on tours and so forth. Thank you all. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Yes.